My name is Peyton Griffin, and this was the night everything turned upside down. My parents sat me down in the lodge office, snow tapping against the windows like it already knew what was coming. My father's voice was as flat as the frozen lake outside when he said, "You'll marry Declan Vaughn." My mother didn't blink. "Sign the papers or we lose it all, including the legacy you've built since you were 16. I stared at the contract, the ink still fresh. There was no argument, no escape. The wedding was a storm of white tents and staged smiles on the main slope. Declan held my hand through the vows, his grip firm, his eyes unreadable. Guests clinked glasses while I tasted metal. When the final helicopter lifted off, we took the private gondola to the honeymoon suite 10,000 feet up. The door locked behind us. Silence. Declan loosened his tie, leaned close, and murmured, "Everything went according to plan." I smiled, slow, sharp. Perfect, because that plan was mine. Growing up at 10,000 feet meant the world stayed white half the year and green the rest. No in-between. My father, Wyatt Griffin, started with a simple ski lodge and turned it into Griffin Peaks Resort, where Denver's tech moguls spent fortunes on private chalets and heli-skiing weekends. He woke me before sunrise, thrusting binders of vendor contracts into my hands. "Learn this. Numbers don't lie." By 10, I was calculating profit margins on hot cocoa sales while my classmates built snow forts. My mother, Kendra Griffin, signed me up for online courses in revenue management, quizzing me over dinner about occupancy forecasts. They called it an investment in my future, but it felt like shackles. By 12, I was checking in guests, memorizing avalanche protocols, and shadowing engineers repairing gondola cables. The resort devoured every weekend, every holiday. Photography slipped in as rebellion. I saved babysitting money for a used Canon, sneaking shots of alpenglow on the ridges or guests mid-air off jumps. Those images captured freedom the ledgers never could. I entered local contests and earned ribbons for a photo of frost patterns on a window. Art teachers praised my eye, urging me to apply to California schools. Dad dismissed it. "Pretty pictures don't cover payroll in a bad snow year," Mom echoed him. "Focus on operations." Then came my little sister, Slope Griffin, the family's shining star. She learned to ski before she could walk straight. Instructors adored her fearless falls. She dodged inventory duty, claiming altitude headaches. Dad excused it. "She's sensitive." Mom upgraded her boots yearly while I patched mine with duct tape. Family outings meant slope front and center on the chairlift while I trailed behind, carrying spare poles. At 14, I pitched a teen photography workshop to boost off-season bookings. Dad shot it down. Too niche. A month later, Slope suggested a kids' spa day. They launched it instantly, branding it her idea. Guests raved. I restocked the mini-fridges. High school widened the gap. I aced economics, Slope failed algebra. Dad bragged about her social skills. My financial reports earned a nod. By graduation, I was the efficient one. She was the favorite. I applied to colleges, but Dad intercepted the acceptance letters. "You're staying here, hospitality management." I complied. The camera gathered dust. Years later, I became operations manager. Slope was brand ambassador. She got the credit. I got the workload. The imbalance wasn't coincidence, it was design. They built their empire on my back and saved the spotlight for her. Then came Declan Vaughn, the man I was ordered to marry. A strategic alliance. The Vaughn family owned half the suppliers we relied on. I didn't protest. Not outwardly, but inside, I began building my own plan. The wedding ended in forced smiles and champagne bubbles that tasted like betrayal. Declan and I escaped to the honeymoon suite high above the slopes. He poured 2 glasses of scotch and handed me one. "So what's next in this grand scheme?" I asked. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small leather-bound journal and a faded photograph. "This is why I agreed to your parents' deal," he said quietly. "And why I'm really here?" The photograph showed a rugged man in ski gear, grinning beside a woman holding a toddler, me. The man was my uncle, Abel Griffin, Dad's older brother, the resort's original co-founder. Abel didn't die in a random avalanche, Declan said. I'm his grandson. His daughter was my mother. I froze. Abel had vanished during a patrol when I was 3. The official report called it an accident. His body was never found. Dad took full control of the resort afterward. Declan opened the journal. He wrote this in the months before he disappeared. The entries told a different story. Arguments over unsafe expansion plans, falsified permits, altered insurance policies. If anything happens, one entry read, tell Pei the truth. She deserves the resort as much as anyone. I felt the air leave my lungs. Abel had warned them. They ignored him. And then he vanished. Declan looked at me. Your parents erased him to build their empire, and now they're doing the same to you. That night, we decided to dig deeper. By dawn, the suite was covered in files, bank statements, permits, scanned documents Declan had collected. The truth sharpened. Insurance fraud, backdated ownership transfers, and a calculated disappearance. We planned our next move, Sunday brunch. The lodge was buzzing. I kept my parents distracted while Declan slipped into Dad's private office. He hacked the computer. A folder caught our eye. Project AG, Contingency. Inside, emails between my parents and contractors spelled out the plan in chilling precision. Abel blocking permits, remove obstacle, stage incident, claim payout. The avalanche wasn't an accident. It was murder. Declan copied everything to a drive. But my mother noticed something was off. During brunch, as guests toasted with wine, I saw her hand linger near Declan's glass. Moments later, he went pale, trembling, collapsing into his chair. Too much to drink? Dad joked. But I saw the flicker in Mom's eyes. She'd poisoned him. Chaos erupted. I screamed for help. A doctor rushed in, Mr. Quinn, Abel's old lawyer, disguised as a guest. He injected Declan with an antidote, saving his life. He turned to me. Your uncle trusted me. I've been watching them ever since. That night, Declan recovered in the clinic. Mr. Quinn handed me Abel's real will, naming me as heir, contingent upon proof of foul play. The next evening, we drove up to the north face, the slope Abel died on. I lured my parents there under the pretense of a malfunction. Declan waited in the shadows with a recorder. When they arrived, I confronted them. Tell me about Project AG, Dad scoffed. Ancient history, Declan stepped forward. Your emails say otherwise. Mom's voice turned cold. Abel was stubborn. He stood in the way. You tampered with his beacon, I said. You left him to die. Dad's mask cracked. He would have ruined everything. One push, and gravity did the rest. It was the confession we needed. Police lights flashed through the trees. Officers emerged, guns drawn. My parents were arrested on the spot. The trial was swift and brutal. The evidence, the forged contracts, the poison, the confessions, sealed their fate. 18 years in prison, no parole. The resort was sold. The proceeds went to Abel's Foundation for Avalanche Safety Research. Slope fled to Europe. I didn't follow. I moved to a small cabin in the foothills, rebuilt a darkroom, and returned to photography. My first gallery show in Boulder was titled Frozen Inheritance. The prints captured what the resort never could: peace, honesty, and silence. Declan visited often. We never wore rings or titles. We didn't need them. What bound us wasn't obligation, it was truth. People ask if I regret it. I don't. The resort was a gilded cage. My parents' legacy was built on lies and greed. But Abel's lesson remains. Integrity outlasts empire. If your legacy poisons you, burn it down and plant something worth growing. That's the only peak worth climbing.